now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Miracle Brokers International is a shipping, moving, and logistics company. You get all our expertise in one stop. Our motto is shop, ship, and save. All shipments are important to MBI and will track your items during shipment, clear through customs on arrival, and deliver to your door. MBI will spend the time in lines to get your cargo for you so you can be more productive with your time. Miracle Brokers, the solution broker. 345-925-5989 or miraclebrokers.com.
All right, good morning, folks, and welcome to another segment of the Cold Hard Truth. How is everyone this morning? It looks like we are all a little bit late with getting up. Good morning to one and good morning to all. Yes, I see people sending me messages saying, are you live? And I am indeed live and direct. So good morning to everyone. How are you guys? Let's do a couple quick shout outs. Yesterday was Jessica Wood's birthday. So happy birthday to the beautiful Jessica. She was actually reminding me that she may have been, one of the first persons that we did the birthday shout outs for a couple years back. And of course, we do not want to forget her birthday. So happy birthday, Jessica. Morna, good morning to the beautiful Morna. I know that she is locked in. I think Noelle is locked in this morning. Who else is here with me? We've got people in the Bay Islands who are watching, and good morning, Petrula. Good to see you here. Lisa from Cayman Brack says, good morning, everyone in CMR. Miss you all for the last couple of days. So it was only one day. It was only yesterday that we did not have a show, Lisa, and it was only because we were having a 2-hour afternoon segment with other members of the media, and we were also having the evening show last night. So even for me, 5 hours for the day would have been a whole lot of talking. So took a little break. And if you've not seen that show yet, I'm going to go ahead and share the link here so that you guys can go and watch that. It was very, very interesting. I thought we had a good lineup. Good morning, Larry. Good morning, Irvlin. I think some of you were able to make that afternoon segment. I know it's a little bit more challenging in the middle of the day. It was at 2 o'clock, but nonetheless, it was really interesting to speak to members of the media and to really see, how much we have in common, no matter who you work for. So we had a panelist from, part of the panelists was from Miami Herald. So we had one lady who was involved in that. We had a few Caribbean people. So one lady is a freelance journalist and she lives in Jamaica, and she's been there for the past 8 years, and she is a freelance journalist. So it was nice to have her joining. She writes for Reuters and other papers. We had Bermuda represented, people living in the UK, but who have a Caribbean connection. And we had Kevin Watler, our own, he now lives in Florida. So Kevin joined us from Florida, as well as Joe Avery, which, as you guys know, also worked for Keyman 27. I've got a little something in my eye this morning. And Joe joined us as well, and he's now in the UK. So Joe had a lot of very interesting things to say. Joe was a real hard hitter, and he talked about some of the struggles specifically of working in media in the Cayman Islands. And interestingly enough, Joe basically said that, you know, he was not, towards the end of his career here in the Cayman Islands, he was not particularly happy with what was going on. And I thought, wow, who knew? But evidently, yeah, he had some concerns. So again, you just never know, you know, what people are going through, what they're enduring. And he said that, listen, it was just one of those things where more and more he was being challenged with what he could do and what he couldn't do in terms of his content. I found that interesting. I really found that interesting, to be quite frank. He said that his management would have been stopping certain stories that he thought was, you know, part of the community and representing the community members and giving the community members a voice. But they did not think, for whatever reason, that those stories had any meaningful impact. And so they would cut his story. I was like, wow, amazing. So thank you to those persons. They really went out of their way to join us. I wish more of you had the opportunity to tune in at that time. But it was a really good session, I must say. I enjoyed, you know, just having the opportunity to speak with different colleagues. I mean, I consider them colleagues. And so it was kind of interesting to put our collective experience all together on one podcast platform and to hear the struggles. There's so many similarities, but yet there are so many differences. So, you know, we all have differences in terms of what we do, what we bring to the table, our audience, and those types of things. We had some members of the panelists who are independent business owners. So they're doing kind of what we do here or what CNS does, very small, and they're doing their own platform. We had others like Jacqueline, who works for the Miami Herald. And Jacqueline was saying how, you know, her organization has gone from having 400 employees down to at least about half of that now. So all organizations across the world are being impacted by a lot of different factors. The media in particular has been transitioning. I think it's a constant state of transition. And for those people who don't get that, like towards the end, you know, some of my colleagues were saying that you've always got to be innovative. You've always got to be willing to change and to do things differently. And if that isn't your approach, generally speaking, like if that isn't your norm, if you think you can remain how you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or even 2 years ago, I think you're mistaken and it will be to your detriment. And the funny thing is, good morning, Daniel from New Jersey. Thank you so much for joining in. Larry, beautiful Ingrid, Olivia, Janetta, and Cecile are also here. Cecile is all the way from the UK. I think the interesting thing about that, to be quite frank and honest, is that should be our approach to life. Like if you are, whatever you do, whatever your job is, you know, whatever your hobbies are, if you get up every single day and you do the exact same thing over and over again, I dare say that you're going to be stagnant and stale in what you do. And you're not going to make as much progress as you could be making or as you should be making. And that's the same thing with business. Like if you get into a business and you decide that you're going to have a particular business model. And then you're not willing to adjust that business model based on changes around you, things that are happening. The industry is changing, the world is changing. I mean, there's just so many components to that. Then you're going to eventually fall behind, personally, professionally, the whole 9 yards. And so the media is no different. If you're in this space, you understand that you can't just do the same thing all the time. You've always got to be fresh and innovative and trying different things and reaching a different audience. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think that that's the way that you really should do it. So, I look at organizations like the Compass and I think, right, they've been king of the hill, literally, for long enough. They've never been challenged. And them not having been challenged means that they've gotten complacent. They're used to the same old, same old. So when the numbers start to dwindle and they are no longer king of the hill, they're no longer making those sorts of numbers that they would have before, I guess it's a bit of a shock to them. Like they probably are like fish flopping on the ground, like they're out of their element. They don't know what to do. And so when other things come in the mix that change things up, then people feel uncomfortable about that. And that's one of the things that Cayman Mall Road has done. We've changed things up a little bit. We use a different formula. We're not like the cookie cutter people, and that has made a lot of people uncomfortable. A lot of you love it. You're like, thank God somebody came and shook up the world of media here in the Cayman Islands. Something different, something interesting. And we dabble in a lot of different things. And I'm always so surprised that people who look at some of what we write and they say, oh, well, she's not a qualified journalist. She's not this, she's not that. And I kind of chuckle to myself. Good morning, Catherine. Morning, Tracy. Morning to the beautiful Morna. I laugh because the people actually knew the experience that I've had in the field of journalism and, my both academic background and like real life writing experience. They would really be surprised to know how I probably have collectively more experience than some people who, came here from elsewhere and just jumped into media and you assume that they had all these credentials. But I didn't think it was necessary to talk about my experience and what I was bringing to the table. Even when I started Cayman Mall Road, it was just like, do you really care how many degrees I have? Honestly, 3, 4 degrees, does it matter? Do you care that I have a technical and professional writing degree? Like, what does that even mean? Most people are like scratching their heads, like, what the heck is that? Does it matter? Or does it matter that I'm just writing and give people the content that they want? And the thing that I realized quite early on is I can sit here and write academic papers. Trust me, I've got right above my shelf here all of these wonderful books because I love to read. I have, we were talking about the digital stuff, so everything is online now. For years, I have stopped purchasing physical books. I have been reading ebooks, electronic books. So I don't think I've ever purchased the Kindle, but I've had the Kindle app on my iPad, my phones, my desktop. So I've been reading electronic books forever. I think it's cost effective. It saves on trees. It helps the environment. I know a lot of people are really old fashioned and they're like, no, I've got to have a book in my hand so I can touch it and smell it. And I'm like, I don't need all of those things. I just need to read what's in it so that I can learn. Good morning, Noelle. And I've got some books here that I treasure that I won't get rid of the physical book. I might have an ebook version, but I really still have, one of them is my evidence book for law school, because the world of evidence, if you ever go to court, is amazingly complex. So I've got some books there. I love audiobooks. Now, I don't know how many of you are into the whole audiobooks thing, but I've been an Audible member, which is a subscription that you can get. Amazon eventually bought them out. You can buy and listen to a book. And I love listening to books. Sometimes the authors will be the ones who narrate the books, which I think is super interesting. Other times it's like a professional voiceover individual, and you get to hear a bit more of the intonations and stuff like that when you're listening to a book as well. So there's so many different things that Catherine's saying she loves them as well. I love me an audiobook. I actually haven't gotten one in a minute, Catherine. I subscribe to the monthly thing. So every month I get a credit, and they're always like, you've got 15 credits, time to buy a book. So I probably should look for something soon. And what I love about them is you can be driving. It's not such a big deal here because normally we don't drive all that far. By the way, I see Coco. You got to give me 1 minute. Coco has come back from her long walk, which she went off on her own. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to go collect Coco and I'm going to be right back. She's really naughty this morning. She took off and now I see her through the window coming back. So I know she's going to be hot and wanting her water. So just forgive me for 1 quick second. Let me grab Coco and I'll be right back. All right, folks, my apologies. Coco's been a naughty dog this morning. Sometimes you let her out for 5 minutes and not even 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and she disappears. And she's all over the neighborhood and she looks like she's been into all sorts of hot things today. So she'll be getting a bath here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, Audible books are great when you're driving. You know, you can pop in an audiobook and listen to half an hour of a book instead of like mindless music and whatever else. So, you know, we all developing and emerging. If you're stuck in, you know, the 1980s or the 1990s or even the 2000s, it's time to get with the program. And media is very much like that as well. So I kind of chuckled how the traditional journalist who has, you know, had their journalist notepad, you know, they use these little notepads. I think I have one here, you know, kind of something like this. And they go to court and they sit there and they write in their little steno books and they take their notes and da-da-da-da. And I'm thinking, boy, I show up with my iPad, my laptop, and I'm writing a story. I'm listening to the judgment. And by the time judgment is done, my story's done as well. I seldom have to go away unless there was some specific thing I didn't understand or I needed to go back to file to wait to publish it. And because we are very different here, we're very streamlined at CMR. I don't have to go to an editor to say, well, read this story for me and give me approval. That's traditional journalism. I've been there. I've done that. You know, I worked for the school newspaper at USF. You submitted, and that was a print paper back in the day. This was the late 1990s. Or mid to late 1990s, you submitted your editorial or your piece, and it was by column size. So depending on where they were going to put you, if it was like front page, you could get so many columns. This means like newspaper columns, like they actually have it mapped out depending on the size of your publication. And if there was an ad at the bottom or in the sides cut into your article, your editor would say, oops, got to cut out half of your story or a quarter of your story or whatever. And that was the norm. And that's how they did it back then. It was more about, okay, we've got this space to fit. Yes, you might have this awesome story and you've written all this content, but it's not going to fit in the space. So we chuck some of it and it is what it is. In this day and age with the digital world, interestingly enough, you can keep as much of it as you want. I guess the only question really is how much is your audience willing to read? So there was some interesting tidbits that were in yesterday's show that you may have missed. So listen to this. Consumers are more engaged when reading print material, unlike websites, which are often skimmed in as little as a 15-second visit. So when you're writing for web, it's quite a bit different than writing for traditional newspaper or print newspaper. So one of the things we do, and I struggle with this because I am more of a academic writer now, right? So having come out of the newspaper space, and again, at the time, I would have been writing for what was traditionally print media. I have done some online submissions before CMR, but I was kind of in that traditional space as well. So I get and I understand how they think. But in my case, there are times that I'm writing something, I go, oh, this is too much. This is too complex of a sentence. Like you've already lost your audience. And again, I get that my audience are not always going to be college educated individuals. So I believe in writing or trying to write for the least common denominator, someone who's high school educated and who has basic reading skills. But I do struggle with that. And I can tell Danica, she does a better job, I think, at being very simple in her writing. And I always am like, when I see something that she's written, I got to be honest with you, I cringe because it's a stylistic difference. That's all it is. It's just style. And because I'm used to a different style of writing than she actually does, because she's only, I think, ever done web, but she gets one sentence. I'm like, why are you writing single sentences? To me, that's like so weird as someone who has a writing degree to put it together in that way. However, what she writes appeals to the average person, and it makes a lot of sense for the audience that we have. So you can tell when I write something versus when she writes it, without a doubt, because my writing tends to be a little bit too complex. And I always try to remind myself there are times when I rewrite. I start off writing something, and in the middle of it, I'll redo my paragraph, rewrite it. And then if I'm writing something legal, like we did a case the other day with, and by the way, this was a super interesting case, but this was the former editor-in-chief and owner of the Compass. He has since died. He died 2 years ago. And apparently his estate is up to some big, they had to litigate this because his sons are not getting along with the woman who was his partner for many, many years. And it's so unfortunate because a lot of people, this would have been Mr. Uzel, a lot of people knew him and knew Andrea and said, they had been together for many, many years. And he himself had accredited Andrea for helping to bring him back to life after I think he had a stroke or heart attack or something. And he was on the verge of death. And he apparently told his own friends that it had not been for her, he would not have gotten those last 13 years of life or whatever it was. So he was very, very thankful to have her in his life. And, when people die, of course, the people that are left behind fighting over the estate don't really care that you gave their father an extra 10 years, 15 years, whatever. As a matter of fact, they may not like you because you did that, because you delayed them getting their hands on his estate even quicker, if the truth be known, right? So, but there's a lot of contention between his sons. I understand he has 4 sons, and Andrea. And unfortunately, it went as far as going to court. And they were suing her, so she was the defendant, claiming that she was unfit and whatever else to, not really so much. I'll tell you what, I read it and I thought to myself, this is a bunch of back and forth. I mean, the judge didn't get into all the details of the back and forth, but she even submitted a 33-page statement or affidavit about the sons and how the things that they had done that she thought was improper. So it just sounds like a hot mess, and how do you capture all of that in an article where there were some interesting points in it that I think needed to be, there's a reason why I have an interest in court matters, obviously from someone who has a legal background. I find a lot of what transpires in court to be very, very interesting. And there are a lot of things that these judges are saying and that they're doing that we're simply not paying attention to, but it has some real life implications for us. So this was the story here. If you have an estate and you're going to appoint executors, this is the kind of case that you should really use if you're going to leave a will. This is the sort of case that you should read to know that if you're leaving people in charge of your estate who will buck heads, this is potentially how the court will resolve the issue. So you see how this is kind of my writing style. And you can totally tell, like I said, when I write something, I have paragraphs. They are shorter than what would be done in an academic sense. So I try to keep my initial paragraph as like a summary because I know, again, most people will get to paragraph 3 and they are literally done reading the article. They've gotten the gist of it and that's it. So you need to get your most important points out in the beginning. Do your summary, what the conclusion was. So you see how by paragraph 2, I'm already telling you what the judge concluded, because I know 90% of you are going to stop at paragraph 2 or 3 and you're not going to read anymore. The rest of the story gets into the details of what transpired, who Andrea was, what are some of the technical things from a legal perspective that the judge actually had to consider because he had to look at certain segments of the law. So there's so many different ways that people write. There's so many different styles of writing. I can show you an example of Danica. And again, she does things very, very differently. Her style is different. And there's nothing wrong with different. It is what it is. So I'll show you. Normally, her introductory paragraph is no more than one single sentence. And sometimes it is a very short sentence. So I'll show you what her style looks like. So when I heard, the panelists talking about what they call bloggers coming into their space, it's like if you're a traditional journalist and you've gone through the ranks and you've done all that stuff, you do feel a way about someone who you think is a blogger. You don't necessarily know their experience. They could have had traditional journalistic experience, but the way in which they come at the industry is very different. And it's hard to define and to distinguish, well, what's a blogger versus what's a journalist. Journalists think that they know, right? And they can identify a blogger. But I find that a lot of bloggers actually have writing experience or they're already journalists. The term blogging actually came from its vlog. Well, a vlog is a video blog, right? So we now call it vlog. Some people say vlog, some people just say vlog. And bloggers are people who came on the scene as the rise of social media, Instagram, Facebook, all these things come up. And basically vloggers are people who will design their own website and they'll write about whatever they want. But it doesn't mean that a vlogger can't be a journalist or a vlogger doesn't have journalistic experience. Not at all. But they are more focused on the social media content and sharing experiences like on a different personable level. That's in my head what a vlogger is versus a journalist. So here's a sample of Danica's stuff, right? So you notice with her, most of the time, her introduction is going to be one sentence, boom, that's it. And you still get what this is going to be about. A religious leader who blamed the COVID-19 pandemic and same-sex marriage has tested positive for the virus. Boom, you're done. You're like, what? I know what the story is all about. And then if you want to continue reading all the details, you find out that this 91-year-old man is now in the hospital because he's tested for COVID, but he was blaming the pandemic on same-sex marriages. So how the heck did he get it? Is he involved in a same-sex marriage? So it's kind of funny and it's ironic. But at 91, of course, is also a very serious health concern. So he has been trying to link the coronavirus to gay marriages. And of course, that's been causing a lot of outcry in his country, his home country of Ukraine. So we've all got different styles. We do different things differently. We've never we didn't come in, Cayman Model didn't come on the scene to be like, oh, we're going to be like the Compass or we're going to be like CNS. What would have been the point of that, really? I mean, who wants another Compass? Who wants another CNS? You want something different. And that's what we pride ourselves in doing. So good morning, Louis. Hi, Miss Beulah. Lizette is here. Thank you so much. Hi, Sue. Now, Sue, I know that you missed me yesterday because I got a phone call from Morna saying, Sue just called me and we're looking for you. Where are you? I love and appreciate people like Sue and Morna and Louie and all of you who are here like clockwork every single morning. And if you can't find me, you're like, where is Sandy? It's kind of like, remember that I think it was a game or something. Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? It's kind of like that. Where in the world is Sandy? Why is she not on air? So I appreciate that so much. Catherine is talking about how much she loves listening to audiobooks when she's working. These are some good ones. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Affirmations for Wealth, Health, and Happiness. Those are some fantastic reads, actually. I read a book many years ago that I feel like I need to read again. And it was called The Millionaire Next Door. And it was a book that looked at statistical data and information about millionaires. And what traits and habits did they all share? Like, what was the common stuff? And it was so insightful, right? Because, true millionaires, you don't see them going around being flashy. That's like the new millionaire, right? When you have new money, you want to buy all the fancy cars and you want to wear all the designer goods and the Louis Vuitton this and whatever. Like, you have to show your wealth because somehow it's tied into your self-esteem. But when someone has worked really, really hard for their millions, and by the way, most of the millionaires of the day, they were not the celebrities, they were not the athletes. These were people who worked in very traditional fields as business owners, whether it was like the garbage collecting business or manufacturing and production. And so they earned their money in a very different way. And they also spent their money very, very differently. So the average millionaire has the same vehicle. I think the average was like 15 or 20 years. So they don't go out every year and buy a new vehicle. The average millionaire does not get a divorce. They stay married to the same woman for a very long time. And you know why? Because in most places in the States, you get a divorce, you're losing half of your assets. Boom, just like that. The average millionaire lives in a modest house and they would tell you like what the house is worth. So they don't tend to be show off people and go out and do the most extra things in the world. Some of the most interesting things about that book that I learned was when you went from the first generation of millionaires to the second generation of millionaires, unfortunately, a lot of the things that first generation learned, like their hard knocks and whatever, they didn't pass on to their children. So, for example, they want their children to become professionals. So they want their children to go to university, go to law school, become a doctor, become a professional, because in this world that we live in, being a doctor, being a lawyer, being an accountant, those are like the big time professions that everyone wants their kids to get involved in. And somehow being a doctor makes you more prestigious in the world of other people, I guess. And so the parents themselves, although they didn't make their millions in any of those fields and they didn't do any of those things, they tend to push their children into those professions. And you know what is so interesting about it is it means that their children are less likely to be millionaires until they inherit their money. Do you know why? And when you think about this, this makes total logical sense. How many years do you have to be in law school to become a lawyer? Well, in the US, unlike the UK system, you actually go to law school. First, you get a bachelor's degree. Then you go to law school. So you're looking at 4 years plus another 3 years. That's 7 years. Then you do some sort of training. So literally, it's like 10 years of training and examinations and all this sort of thing before you can get to the point where you start to make some money. Isn't that interesting? So they're delaying their children entering the workforce to start earning and making the millions that they have acquired by at least 10 plus years, depending on the profession, because some physicians, if you're a heart surgeon or you're a specialist, you're going to spend way more than 10 years training. You know, you're going to do all the academic stuff, plus internships, specializations, and it goes on and on and on. So it's really interesting, things like that. But if you've ever wanted to know about wealth accumulation, what the wealthy do with their money, how they spend their money, this is like one of those books that I would recommend. Like, I found it so incredibly fascinating. So many habits of, like, how many credit cards does a millionaire have? You know, what are their spending habits? Where do they spend their money? What's the majority of their budget? They're packing a sandwich and taking it to work, while the rest of us going out to eat at Casanova's every day or whatever. So some very interesting things, but Catherine reminds me of some books that I have had an opportunity to read as well. Now, I saw someone send a picture. Ooh, we've got some breaking news. There's been a fire incident in Cayman Brac. Oh my gosh. So a bit of breaking news here. To my Cayman Brac folks, there's a major fire incident at Urban's Lane, Cayman Brac, a fire in the laundry room. Where's Urban's Lane? Cayman Brackers, anybody? 48-year-old asthmatic female had difficulty breathing. Fire extinguished and fire safety inspector notified and en route to the scene. So that's happening right now. That makes me think that that's a hotel. Urban's Lane. Let me just message one of my contacts on the Brac. Let's see here. Speaking of that, we need to get Elvis on. I was trying to get him on this weekend. But he was trying to sort out his entrance. Like, how does he get the technology part of it sorted to join us? So let us see if we can find out where Urban's Lane is. But when they said the laundry room, that sounds like that has to be a hotel somewhere that has a laundry room, or maybe some sort of or some sort of a some sort of a facility that actually has a laundry room. So we'll try to find out. Okay, so as soon as we know about that, I will certainly advise you guys and let you know. So we have a press briefing this afternoon at 3 o'clock. So you'll want to make sure that you tune in for that. A lot of people were messaging me. I thought it was so interesting. They're like, why are we having a press briefing? You know, it's kind of like we had gotten used to having them daily during the height of the COVID situation. And now people get very suspicious when we're having a press briefing, like, oh, what's being announced? What's going on? Are they opening the borders? Like, people are scared of something happening. And, you know, that's the reason why we're having the press briefing. Well, I do not have any of the details as yet on the agenda. Sometimes during COVID, we would get the information early through our sources in terms of what was coming down the pipeline. You know, sometimes in advance, we were able to tell you they're going to be shutting down more things. They were doing this, they were doing that. But yes, I do not know. I do not know what this one is about. I think a lot of people are still very much worried and leery about us reopening our borders with good cause. And yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be? Jamaica is having a hot mess of a time. Speaking of Jamaica, good morning, Gina. The JLP is contesting. I think they're going to take a few of the decisions to court because apparently the preliminary results have shifted, where some people lost by a greater margin or won by a greater margin. So, if, for example, Lisa Hanna, originally the results were that she had only won her re-election seat by like 14 votes or something. And that they drew a preliminary count and then they recount the ballots. And when they recounted the ballots, she ended up winning, I think, by almost 50 seats, which is still a really slim margin. I mean, for a woman who has won by thousands of votes previously and would have half of the votes in her constituency to now win by such a small margin is still shocking. Whether it's 14 or 50 votes, it's still an amazing number that she barely won by. But the JLP, there've been a couple seats that have now come up and that are questionable between the PNP and the JLP. And the JLP is prepared to fight for those seats in a court of law. So that's super interesting. So I think that there are 3 or 4 seats that they're looking at contesting in a court based on the final ballot results. So having said that, I'm trying to just get some further details on this fire that I can tell you guys about. So having said that, they are having quite the COVID outbreak. Their death toll continues to rise. Their total tally now surpasses 3,000. And I think the death toll is close to 40 people. And it doesn't seem like they have it under control. So 60 new cases, in addition to 2 new virus-related deaths. Total number of cases are now at 3,024. Death toll has risen to 32. So that was as of 2 days ago, and I think it's gone up even more since then. The latest victims were a 42-year-old man and an 80-year-old woman. So they were the latest persons to die as of 2 days ago. Kingston and St. Andrew is where they were, and they were receiving treatment in the hospital. So of the 60 new cases, 30 are females, 30 males, ranging from 4 years old to 78 years old. And they cover a good portion of the island from St. Anne to Clarendon, St. Catherine and Manchester, St. Elizabeth, Trelawney, St. Thomas, so all over. And it's not good. So this is really interesting because last week, the Minister of Health, Dr. Christopher Tufton, announced that community transmission had begun. When I saw that, I was like, begun? You mean it's been community transmission for a very long time? So I thought that was kind of a weird thing to say because obviously it's being transmitted in the community. From when they had the outbreak, remember at that call center, that was community transmission. Like I find it so bizarre sometimes when these so-called politicians and experts say certain things, because I'm thinking that doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, so they continue to struggle with that, and I think, right, if we reopen our borders, where is the vast majority of influx of people? The US, which I think the numbers are down slightly, but it's still kind of crazy. And Jamaica probably account for 85% of the people that are coming into this country. So that being the case, why would we open our borders? Who are we bringing in? It just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So I do not know, like I said, if today's press briefing will be specifically addressing that. I mean, this government has really only had press briefings in relation to the whole COVID situation and ancillary matters. So if it's related to, education concerns, the reopening of our schools, and so on, but it was still a COVID press briefing. I do find it weird because there have been other governments in the past that have had regular press briefings to just allow the media and the general public to ask questions of them, make themselves accessible. This particular government, the PPM government, doesn't seem too keen on doing that. Even before the whole COVID outbreak, they weren't really keen on doing that. And we saw that on more than one occasion. They didn't even want to go on the talk shows with like Woody and other people. So they don't feel like they have to necessarily talk to the people or communicate with the people on much outside of COVID. So COVID was obviously a very unique and different situation. And yeah, I guess we'll kind of watch their approach going forward and see, what happens essentially. All right. So we'll keep an eye on this Black Fire, Urban's Lane, 72 Urban's Lane. Hold on one second. There's probably a really quick way to find out. Google is your friend, folks. The Urban's Lane is La Esperanza Resort and Hotel. Boom. What did I tell you, folks? Just like that. Can I just tell you? One of the biggest things as a journalist that you have to have is ability to find out information. Yeah. And nobody can do more digging than Detective Sandy. I tell you what, I should have been a detective in a former life because I actually have, where's my little detective hat and magnifying glass? I've got one of those around here somewhere. I should have been a detective in a former life. Because I can find information, and as far as I'm concerned, it's so easy to find in this day and age online anyway, but just digging and talking to the right people and getting the information. And so here is a story that hasn't made the press because we couldn't really get a whole lot of information on it. But apparently there was another stabbing on Sunday morning. And this involved another situation with a man and a woman. I don't know what's wrong with these men and women these days. But the man is in custody. So this was Sunday morning about 5 o'clock. This is a domestic incident. The assailant remains in police custody. Victim is about 26 years old, fighting over a girl that's about 21 years old. And he chopped up, apparently he got home. He lives close to the area commonly known as Dog City. And I'm sorry, I cannot remember the proper name of it, but when we say Dog City, everybody knows what we're talking about. So he got home, found the man in bed with his woman in his home. Now that takes a special kind of balls, folks, for her. I mean, you're going to have a man on the side and you bring him to your house. And I guess he spent the whole night so that when your real man comes home at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't know where he was at all night, what he was doing. But when he comes home to find somebody else in his bed with his woman. So you can imagine how you would feel if you were in that situation. And we do not condone violence here on this program. And chopping the man out with a machete would not have been the advisable thing to do. You know, you would better off kick him out the front door and just calling the police or whatever. But my dear folks, he lost it and he chopped the man out with a machete. The man was in the hospital. I understand his injuries were not life-threatening, and he has since been released. So it's like people have gone crazy lately for stabbing and chopping each other up. And the common denominator in most of the instances have been people fighting over a woman. And can I tell you, to me, it makes no sense because the woman's going to move on to somebody else. When you're in jail, she's not going to be staying with you. And what would be the point of that, really? So Morna is saying maybe it's time to government start banning knives. I think they need to address the underlying issue, which is people resorting to violence in order to get things done. People don't know how to argue anymore. Like before, you just curse somebody out and just walk away. Now it's like, if I don't shoot or stab you, I'm not happy. And that's just crazy. Walters Road. Thank you, Morna. Yes. I think the community has a name, and this incident wasn't directly in that community. It's like the next little road over that's right next to not Midtown Plaza. What's the plaza there called? The one where KFC is in. So it's like right next to that plaza. It's kind of down a little road there, but it's in the general vicinity of that area. So crazy people. You know, we had a young man lose his life. The police are still asking for eyewitnesses to come forward. I had gotten a flyer, but unfortunately it was a very poor copy of the flyer. So I'm trying to get a better copy of their flyer that the police had put together. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can just message about that now. It's sad, but this young man has indeed lost his life. Mr. Ricardo Pars. Super sad. So what else is going on in the beautiful Cayman Islands? Lots of discrimination as usual. So housing discrimination, job discrimination. I'm always shocked at people who are so bold to post up stuff saying, oh, we only want expats to rent our condo or to share a facility with us. Or I'm like, where do you think you live? You do realize that you moved to the Caribbean, you moved to the Cayman Islands, and I guess your intent wasn't to integrate with anybody. Because when you see stuff like that, that's not about inclusion or integration. You know, that's about keeping things separate, which is probably how they were used to things back home. Ay, folks. I think what needs to happen is really and truly the law, aka the politicians, and this is where they are dropping the ball big time. They need to legislate that such publications, such articles are illegal, unlawful, and there has to be some consequences for attempting to discriminate against people in that manner. We post them on all sorts of websites, EK Trade, all sorts of websites, and we just continue to talk about it, and then nothing ever happens. You know, it's kind of like, what on earth? I don't know. That's what happens. What will change, folks? What will change? Good morning. Yeah, Sue is saying that, fight with your fists, which even that isn't even worth a woman, because trust me, listen, you do not have a quality woman if you come home and find her in bed with somebody else. Let's just be very, very straight here. Seriously. So wasting a good fist fight on somebody like her is stupid. Doesn't make any sense. You would be better off just moving on. Finding yourself another person. Yep, that's how I see it. I think it's a waste of time, energy to fight over something that has no value. And unfortunately, I kind of feel like if a woman will do that to you, or a man will do that to you, that's a clear sign that you just need to move on and just find yourself someone else. Very, very sad situation, but it is what it is, right? So, I did not even realize that La Esperanza, I thought it was just a bar. I didn't know that they actually had a hotel there. I didn't know that it was like a full resort. It sounds like I have got a lot more exploring to do on Cayman Brac. And so I better get back out there. I better make another trip. I see it was up for sale not too long ago. I need to see when this photo was. $2 million will get you the Esperanza Resort and Hotel in Cayman Brac. I wonder what kind of money they make there in terms of a resort. Like, I've never heard of them being a hotel even. Like, when you think of hotels and resorts on the Brac, I've never heard of La Esperanza being called. I just thought it was a local hangout. Goes to show you how much I know about the Brac. So we're glad that nobody was seriously injured. Someone said to me the other day, I was having a conversation with Quincy, and Quincy said, you need he said, you need a Brac reporter. I kind of chuckled at it because I thought to myself, how much stuff goes on the Brac that we would actually need someone there? But perfect example of where sometimes it's useful to have someone readily available and on the scene. Why not? So yeah, it's a good idea, Quincy. Maybe we need to talk. The problem with Quincy is I think he's in Grand Cayman more than he actually is on the Brac. So he wouldn't be the right person, I guess, for that job. But most Brackers kind of keep me informed anyway of what's going on. So they always send information like, oh, this happened this weekend. Anything serious, they let me know. So I don't know if you guys remember when someone broke into the house of Mr. Moses Kirkernel, his mom's house, right after she'd passed away. And everybody in the Brac was like, this is so disrespectful. Like, they know the woman just died. Her house is now, unattended and locked up and whatever. And some idiot went there and decided to break into the woman's house. Well, it didn't take them long to figure out and to charge them with an entry or burglary or whatever it was. So it's unfortunate, but we get that type of information. So if it's anything serious, sometimes they take people's lives with the car accidents, and we find out in a hurry exactly what's going on, and people send photos, and so yeah, I mean, all of those things are made readily available to us, for sure. But I do like the idea of having kind of someone on the BRAC who is more involved and will keep us informed. So, and when it develops any further, but I think it's fair to say that thankfully no further injuries are being reported at this time. So Doss says that ad was a wake-up call. Which ad? Oh, yes, the one with the expats only kind of thing. Listen, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen ads like that. In case you missed it, we have people in this country who have no respect for us, no respect for people, no respect for our culture, nothing. They're just here to get and grab, get what they can, grab it, and be on their way. If the Cayman Islands falls apart, if we fail, if we succeed, they're not business. They don't care. That's not what they're here for, folks. They're here to get as much as they can in as short of a space as they can so that they can move on with their lives. So I'm going to just pull this up on the screen here. And that's a sad indictment on us as much as it is on them. Because we are the ones, folks, who are inviting people into our country. We're bringing people here on work permits and all these other things. And I dare say we are not bringing the most desirable people here. So who can we blame but ourselves? Adverts about, I only want to employ a Filipino. Or, there's one the other day that said Filipino or Nicaraguan or something really weird. And then the owners of those establishments have the audacity to contact me saying, you've misunderstood the ad. Really? I think it was crystal clear, How do you misunderstand? We're looking for a Filipino or a Nicaraguan. It was plain English. Well, our clients, listen, I got business with your clients, folks. If you're running an employment agency, here it is, and you allow your clients, whether it's a rental agency, a job, whatever, if you allow them to dictate to you that you can somehow discriminate and you think that that's an excuse or that is okay, something is wrong. So here, this one, bedroom, in-suite, professional, blah, 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 available for professional expat in the luxurious San Sebastian development. 3 pools, gym, tennis court. And the thing about it is, it's $1,500 per month, minimum 1 month stay, refundable deposit, payable in advance, no couples, no room sharing. built-in wardrobe and additional chest of drawers, allocated parking space. I read this ad and I thought, this is not even a highfalutin location. I mean, the Sebastian, okay, I guess South Sound, everybody thinks it's gorgeous and everybody believes that they want to live there until the first storm comes rolling through and then they all change their minds in a hurry. But yeah, okay. It's an all right area. I mean, it's a fairly nice area. I'm not going to say that. Bright room with in-suite bathroom available for professional expat. Now, I saw this, I thought, are you just paying for just the room? So it's $1,500 for the room. Now that's different than $1,500 for an apartment. So maybe this is exorbitantly priced. But nonetheless, this is discrimination, folks, no matter how you cut it. When you have adverts like this, when you have job offers for certain nationalities only, that is straight up discrimination. Now I have to wonder, Noel says, I'm so tired of the bad internet service in Cayman. Why pay so much for this service and get shit in return? Boy, Noel pissed off at something else. My God, that's a whole other show, Noel. But I have to wonder, right? We all saw this and we shared it on our platform. Did anyone think, and this is Doss, you're reading my mind, or I'm reading your mind this morning. Same thing I'm about to say. He says, boycott the business that they're employed to. This is what I was going to say. When you see ads like this, do you ever contact the companies and say, or the individuals renting these places, why are you discriminating against people? I had another young lady message me yesterday on WhatsApp. She was calling about a place for rent. And the person said to her, let me just read the message so I get it correct. The person said to her, where are you from? Sorry. So again, where you're from makes a difference, folks. And they sent a picture of the house, called to inquire about this place. And the lady's asking, where are you from? How long have you been in Cayman? That's discrimination. So this is in Prospect, Dogwood Street, number 28, Unit A. Beautiful home, rent located in Prospect, available now. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, near the bus stop, close to school, 5-minute walk to the main road, central AC, split AC, blah, blah, blah. And this person wants to know, where are you from? What does it matter where you're from? It only matters where you're from if you are intending to discriminate against someone. I understand vetting your renters, people that you want to hire and do business with. Things like their sexuality, their religious beliefs, where they're from, those don't seem like precursors to an employment situation or an offer of employment, nor should they be precursors to whether or not you're going to rent to the person. I mean, I'd be more concerned about, do you have a viable job to be able to pay the bills? Can you get me a previous reference from a landlord to demonstrate that you've never had a payment issue? Those criteria make sense. I get those. What I don't get is why where you're from makes a difference, what the skin color you are makes a difference. Those things are just absolutely ridiculous. Thank you, Ricky. So Ricky says that Ward Scott is a reporter, photographer who lives in Cayman Brac. I don't know him, but I will see if maybe we can look him up. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think having a little BRAC connection, what's going on in the BRAC, coverage of BRAC events. I mean, I tell you what, when I was there over a week ago, the BRAC was busy. They had so much going on that weekend. Football matches. There was a high-profile funeral. There was the cookout with the kids at the high school, at Lehman Scott High School, which I missed. There was some confusion with the time, and I missed that one. I was so sad because I really wanted to see the young people participating in that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to have a little correspondent connection there on Cayman Brac. So thank you, my dear, for that suggestion. We shall certainly look into it. So what are we going to do about this discrimination situation? I think perhaps what makes most sense is for, first and foremost, the government to step in, make it unlawful to discriminate in employment, housing, et cetera, et cetera. And then they make sure that legislation has some enforceable teeth to it so that when it is breached, they can actually do something about it. We don't want it like every other piece of legislation where there's nothing you can do. It's just a waste of paper having it on our books. I think that would be a start, and a very welcome start at that. So, press briefing this afternoon. We're starting to get more and more back to normal in terms of events. So I saw the Intertrust Marathon is coming up. I saw that the Taste of Cayman has rescheduled their event for next year in April. So mark your calendars for these things. Please do not forget that we have an events calendar available on Cayman Mall Road. The LGBTQ Foundation is having a fundraiser event that's coming up here soon. They are a fairly new organization, and they are looking to have fundraising events to be able to have like a small office space and, you know, do the educational and the support services that they wish to have available. So thank you so much for that information that's been coming through. So we have an event section of our website, and I would encourage you to check it out. I'll post the link. So that you can get those details. So if you have any event, if you're part of a nonprofit organization, if you're part of even a for-profit organization for a small fee, you can certainly get added to our community and business calendar. So just email events@caymanmallroad.com. Now, the LGBT community has been under a lot of pressure as of late. And, you know, I'm always really bothered by when people have an agenda and they want to come across as being so incredibly honest and this, that, the next thing. And they are what we call duplicitous. Duplicitous mean they're like a Spanish machete. They'll cut you from both ends. They play both sides of the field. They're dishonest. You can't take anything they say for face value. You cannot trust them. And people like Katina Anglin, who is part of, or she's the sole person, really, let's be honest here, of this Christian Civics Association or whatever they call themselves. She has mounted a legal challenge now, she claims, against the governor of the Cayman Islands, which, by the way, Ezra Miller, who is a well-respected, in my opinion, some people may not like him because he goes a little hard for Caymanians. And I know some expats think that he's anti-expat, and I don't think he's that at all. I think he is just pro-Caymanian, and maybe he's a little rough around the edges with how he says certain things. But he's a pretty smart guy, and he's been in the Legislative Assembly for a minute now. And we spoke to him. He issued a statement a couple of days ago. And we did speak with him, and he basically said, listen, this so-called legal challenge that she's bringing against the governor is futile, meaning it's not going anywhere. She's not going to win. It doesn't even make any logical sense. And I wondered, I'm like, how do you sue the governor who is giving instructions from the SCO? Like, I did find that a little bit weird. Who's taking instructions, my apology, from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Given the relationship that we have with the UK, which is akin to us being their child, it doesn't seem like we would have a whole lot of options on suing them. I mean, technically, in law, you can sue your parents. You can emancipate yourself from your parents, and you can sue them, I guess, for certain things. And then in most cases, you just need to get out of their houses. And I wonder if there's not a bigger agenda here as it relates to independence. And I've had people say, well, they would rather independence than a civil partnership bill. I am so shocked by that, honestly. I think independence will eventually be thrust upon us. But to make that kind of statement when you're nowhere near prepared for independence, I mean, take a look around at the so-called elected officials that we have in there. And you really think Cayman would do well going independent, financially or otherwise? Are you willing to give up everything that you have just because of your hate against the LGBT community? And you'd rather not have civil partnerships, but you lose the economic stability of this country. You lose, potentially your nice homes. You start having garrison areas in the community. You become another failure as a former Commonwealth. Is that more important than anything else? That's more important just because you'd rather not have civil partnerships. I'm just thinking, something's wrong here. Something's wrong with the way some of our people are thinking. So Mr. Ezard issued a press release. And in that, he said that, listen, her chances are futile. I don't even know, because she got approved for legal aid. And I must tell you, the legal aid people put you through the ringer when you apply for them. And you also need, if it's not a criminal case, if it's a civil case, you do need a legal opinion to show that you have an arguable case. So I don't know how she got approved for legal aid, because as Mr. Ezard has pointed out, under Section 31(4) of the Constitution, it cleanly states that the question of whether or not the governor has in any matter complied with any instructions issued to him or by him or on behalf of Her Majesty shall not be inquired into in any court. That seems very simple to me. Plain language. I mean, I know some of these laws can get a little complex and a little confusing, but this one is pretty straightforward. You can't sue the governor. So why would anyone think that that is a possibility? I have no idea. But it's not her money, folks. Even though they have said, oh, you need to find money, some contribution, she is not going to have the $4,000 because she doesn't work or anything like that. So it is now up to the people to donate to her cause for her to get the $4,000 to be able to challenge the governor. Well, I'm going to go with Mr. Ezzard in this one. Mr. Ezzard says this is futile. He has a lot of experience in this area, and I believe him when he says that this is futile. So, wasting good money of the people, wasting donated money of the people. Yeah, no bueno, folks. Now, I was getting to this point because I was getting to the point of how duplicitous people are, because there is a rumor afoot that she and her organization, I guess her supporters, are looking to start to make more of a physical stand against the LGBTQ community by, I want to be careful how I say this, supposedly protesting their events, but with a view to doing so at any means necessary. In other words, she doesn't care. Her supporters, organizers are saying that they don't care if they have to get violent and making threats towards members of the LGBTQ community. This is disappointing, somewhat shocking, but not really. When you know what you're dealing with and you understand the level of ignorance that these people have on a daily basis, not just on this topic really, but they're just ignorant people, you're not particularly surprised that this is the way that they would seek to resolve a dispute or their issues, right? Especially knowing that the chances of them winning a court case are slim to none. So Carol asked a very good question. If they're making physical threats, why aren't they being arrested? Well, the matter has definitely been reported to the authorities, to the police, but we know how the police are sometimes. They're going to sit back and wait and say, well, that's not much of a threat. We'll have to wait and see what happens. I think given what has been happening in this community and the way that these people are thinking, it is a necessity for any event now that is being sponsored or held by any member of that community, they must have police presence. Folks, this is the Cayman Islands, and I'm so sad to even have this discourse, to have this conversation. Because at the end of the day, as Mr. Miller has said, it is time, and this is his quote, to put this partnership issue behind us and move forward in the traditional Caymanian spirit of tolerance, harmony, and unity. In the process, I'm sure we will find common ground to work together in the best interest of the Cayman Islands. That has been, I guess, the traditional Caymanian way, except on this topic, I guess. Because on this topic, they feel like they can be batshit crazy and do whatever they wish, and that will somehow be acceptable. It's not acceptable behavior, Carol. It's disgusting. Sue, I agree with you. It's disgusting. And it speaks to how much of an ignorant situation we have in this country and some of the people that we are dealing with. Really sad. So, We will continue to monitor these storylines, and we will certainly keep you all abreast of any new developments and what's going on. It's a sad day in the Cayman Islands when this sort of thing happens. Don't know what else to say about that, to be quite honest. Really, really sad. Let me just see what else has been happening in the news as of late. So yesterday evening, in case you missed last evening's show, we were talking about Mr. Robert. He is a Filipino man who works here in the Cayman Islands for a local business. And unfortunately, he found out yesterday morning that his wife had passed away. And the worst part of this is she passed away, unfortunately, after having been sick with COVID at a facility there in the Philippines. And he was attempting to get her to a new facility that could offer better care to her. And unfortunately, Fidelity Pension dragged their feet so much that it didn't happen in time. So now his wife has passed away, and he is in the process of making arrangements to return to the Philippines. So last night we were trying to get him on the program, and he was tied up trying to get paperwork submitted so that he can get permission to go back into the Philippines, get all his travel documents sorted out, and at the same time also trying to plan his wife's funeral. Sad. Really, really sad. In a bit of celebrity news, I don't know if you guys are a fan of the Kardashians or not, but their reign of terror, or whatever you want to call it, has finally come to an end. Now, I'm not going to lie, I actually like watching their show. I've watched it for a long time. The last couple seasons, you know. So I indulge in certain TV shows, so-called reality TV shows. And the Kardashians is one of those shows, folks. The most interesting thing about the Kardashians is their rise to fame has been a direct result of that show. So it's kind of interesting, I think, now to see what's going to happen to them, like how their careers will. I mean, they have all kind of spin-off. They've had spin-off shows, they've had spin-off businesses, the whole nine yards. And their $1 million, and in one case, allegedly $1 billion empire has been built on the foundation of them having this reality show and now becoming, social media influencers, to the point where they say, buy this cream, it makes me look young and pretty. And you're going to rush out and buy the cream, and it's like, it's Vaseline or whatever, They've all started different clothing lines, makeup lines. Kim Kardashian has her own clothing line. She's in law school. She's become a mother during this time. She's married to Kanye West, which we know suffers from bipolar disorder. And that has been something very tumultuous for her lately to be dealing with. The younger sister, her entire career, most of her life has been growing up in front of the camera, on TV. So I don't know what she's going to do once the TV stops rolling, but she has, this is not Kendall. Kendall's a model. This is Kylie. She has set up a makeup empire, right? And she's, I think, getting into kind of other things and stuff as well. So they have made a lot of money off of their fame, their self-made fame in a way. I think Courtney is the least, like, she just wants to be a mom. Like, she doesn't really want to do much else. And she has been pulling back from the show. So even last season, there was a whole storyline about her no longer wanting to film with her sisters. And she was just kind of over it. She's like, yeah, I just want to go to live in my life and finding a man and trying to be happy. And who knows, she may end up with Scott in the end. And it's just like, so a lot of us has followed their journey and their lives, and we live vicariously through them. So their show will be coming to an end next year in 2021. So if you're familiar with them, they've had a 20-year run, which I think is a long time for a reality show. That is phenomenal. So yes, we will see how that goes. I think I've got to go back and watch, because I kind of feel like I didn't quite binge watch all of last season, because normally I'll sit down and I'll watch you know, a couple episodes at a time. I don't feel like I've done that. Like, I might be missing out on the last season or so. So I need to check that out. So yeah, so their reign of, like I said, for some of you, it might be their reign of terror, is actually going to be coming to an end now. So what next? There's so many reality TV shows that have sprung up. Like, that has been the new genre, I guess, in the past 10, 15 years. I don't know what the first so-called reality TV show was, but this is the sort of, first, I mean, it's a newer genre that people really like and people are really into it. And it's reality, but it is scripted to a certain extent, because even, those of us who watch Bravo, you hear the Bravo housewives say that, listen, they will film 100 hours of, filming, and 10 of those makes the season, because the hour per week is just not enough to put it all in there, right? Which is understandable. So yes, I mean, it is what it is, and it's super interesting to see how that entire genre has really taken off in such a way that it's the norm now. Like, people watch reality shows and they're like, well, it's not reality TV. This is just like regular TV. And it allows us to kind of live vicariously through other people. So in other words, we get to like pretend, like, for that hour that I'm sitting there watching the Kardashians, I'm like, oh, how fabulous would it be to live in this beautiful home in California and have their lifestyle, their vehicles, their whatever. And after the hour's over, we're back to reality. And the reality is get back to work to be able to pay that CUC bill. So yes, it's what it is, and their show, like I said, is coming to an end. All right, good people. I think we're going to wrap up there if there's nothing else that is absolutely pressing this morning. So comment here that so many things are closing down or ending. That's life for you. Sue enjoyed some of their show. England knew what it would be to divide us as a people, so the governor and the premier teamed up to get the job done. So here we are. Well, Jonathan, the truth of the matter is, I don't know why Caymanians feel like this issue has to tear us apart. To me, this is not that kind of an issue at all. This is an issue of living and let live kind of a situation, you know? And why is this such a divisive issue? It is because how people feel so strongly about that community. And I don't know why people feel so strongly about that community. I really kind of feel like they need to let it go. I agree with Ezard Miller when he says, move on. There are more important things that we need to be focused on in this country. And, we keep going in circles on it. The governor and the FCO knew that we would not pass it. I don't think Alden, someone sent a story that the Jamaican Gleaner, I think, had done a couple years ago, back in 2009, 2008, where Alden was saying that he would be opting for independence if same-sex marriage was forced on the people of the Cayman Islands. Obviously, this is not same-sex marriage. But Alden has fought it as much as he can. Like, I don't really know what else you guys want the man to do. And, I'm not sitting here defending him because Alden and I are friends, because, that's the farthest thing from the truth. I don't have any issues with him, but, well, I shouldn't even say that because that wouldn't be dishonest. I have had issues with him in the past and how he says certain things and how he reacts and what he says in the Legislative Assembly. But what I'm trying to say is it's not really all that personal for me. I saw him in the BRAC and I said, hey, Alden, what's up? 2-second conversation, no skin off my back. But I think he did the most that he could do. He spent hundreds of thousands of people's dollars on trying to defend this. He would not have known that the Court of Appeal, although finding in their favor, would have still issued a directive to say you're still in contravention of your Bill of Rights and you need to fix this. He could not have predicted that. And trust me, I'm pretty sure none of them expected that, because I've said this numerous times, I'll say it again, I have never seen a court directive issued or come down in this way, although technically the government won the case. So, it is what it is. And unfortunately, we now really need to consider what else is happening in this country and around the world, and we need to move on. So yes, Kardashians is coming to an end. I think it was still a good run. Like I said, 20 years is a long time. We've seen them grow up and have kids, and the kids become parents, and the mom, like when the show started, you remember none of those grandkids were here. Mason, none of them were here. So we've seen, she doesn't like to be called a grandmother, but Kim Jenner, is that her name? Not Kim Jenner. What's the mom's name again? Ugh, I can't even remember. You guys know what I'm talking about. Jenner. She has, Kris Jenner, sorry. She's become a grandmother during all of this time. It's been a very interesting journey and an insight into their lives and their lives of being relatively unknowns to, becoming famous. And a lot of it, their fame eclipsed when the sex scandal happened, the sex tape scandal happened with Kim Kardashian and Ray J. And listen, Kim made her millions off that video. She's like, well, I might as well take a bad thing and make it into something profitable, because it's going to be bad for me no matter what. So if I can make a few $1 million off of it, kickstart my career, why not? But it's always struck me that Kim has been the one sister in particular that has always been underestimated. Like the eldest sister, not Chloe, but the other one. She actually has a dual degree in Spanish and something else. She went to university. She completed college. Kim didn't really do that because I think she was doing like fashion design and other stuff initially. But now Kim is studying to become a lawyer. And she has been advocating on behalf of a lot of persons who are incarcerated in the judicial system and the prison system in the US. And so there is, she has an agenda where she's trying to push for prison reform, and she's using her celebrity status in order to get some things done. And I think, why not? There's so many celebrities out there who do nothing for other people. They just live their lives, take their millions, take it to the bank. So Irvin says they're messing with your live. Why? I don't really see anything going on. I'm actually watching the feed on another thing over here, but I did see Noelle mention some issues with the internet. So maybe the internet is having issues today. I don't really know. But from where I'm watching it seems okay on my Facebook feed. So I don't know. Listen, we live in a first world country, and a lot of times we're getting third world internet. Like Noelle said, at times you feel like it's so pathetic. Entirely possible. All right, good folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. Tune in at 3 o'clock. We will carry the live press conference. I've got tons of work to do. I've got one thing that's been on my list of things to do for like the past week. And today, after the show, I will sit down and have a focused moment, pull up that Excel spreadsheet and just get it done. Some days you just got to do that because you get distracted by, oh, here comes another email. Here comes another phone call. You got to block it all out. Stay hyper-focused, folks, and just get it all done. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate the love and support as always. And again, if you've not had an opportunity to watch that program yesterday, I thought it was a really good program, and you should probably go back and have a look at it. So Noelle says, yes, keeps buffering. I've just moved back to Logic from Flow. Lord have mercy. Well, I don't even want to tell you about Logic right now, but Irvin, if you're in Logic, that's probably where your issue lies, because they have been having a serious issue for the past couple months that I have noticed. And I notice these things a lot for good reason. And you know what? These things don't normally resolve themselves on their own. So what I'm going to suggest, I'm with Flow, folks. I'm here on a Flow 200 meg or 100 meg connection or something. So I'm not noticing anything on my end, but what I would say to you all is if you're having that issue, it's probably Logic. So maybe reach out to them with a complaint. Don't forget, now you can also do an off-reg test. They have their app that they launched a couple weeks back where you can test it from their app and then report those findings to off-reg. Once again, the mechanism is there for you to report these companies. You just got to do it, first of all. If you never report them and they never fix anything, they never get stuff resolved, it just continues, and off-reg is like, well, we can't do our jobs because no one has technically ever complained about it. And we know we have some crappy internet here sometimes. And I think it's about time that people started to take a stance on poor internet. We, for years now, have been saying this. Half the time you're paying for one speed and you're not even getting anywhere near that. We've got a young lady in quarantine. I'm hoping that we can get her in the program tomorrow. Today's her test day, so she's going to find out. I'm sure she's fine, but we'll bring her on maybe tomorrow's show. That's all she wrote, folks. You guys have a wonderful day. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning, 3 p.m. today for the press conference. We'll see what is announced. If you miss it, stay tuned to CMR because we'll post up exactly what was covered. Awesome. Beautiful. Stay safe, folks.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.